Okay, in this last part of the lecture, we're going to start off by talking about exhaustion of remedies, which is actually a favorite topic of mine. And I know various administrative law things aren't too exciting to most people, but I think that exhaustion of remedies is very interesting. And part of it is because it's a great way if people are suing. I used to work, as an environmental attorney. I worked for the Attorney General's office and represented the Department of Ecology. So, as an agency attorney, I was always looking for ways to stop people from suing the agency. And one of the best ways to stop people from suing the agency was pulling out the old exhaustion of remedies, because inevitably somebody missed a step. And really, what exhaustion of remedies is making sure somebody's jumped through all the hoops. Thus, the little jumping through the hoop picture here. People have to do every single step. And with an agency decision, like let's say the Department of Ecology decides that the beach in front of your house belongs to the state, and you don't like that because you think the beach in front of your house belongs to you. So first, you'd have to appeal. First, the agency would have to make a final decision, which sometimes they just make preliminary decisions and take a long time to actually make a final decision. So you can't do anything until the agency's made a final decision. After they do that, you have to appeal to the agency and wait for their final decision on your appeal. And after that, you can't appeal to a court. You have to appeal to a hearings board. And then after that, you can appeal to a trial court, which would hear your trial de novo, as we read about in Chapter 2. And then you could go to an appeals court. And then maybe you'd get to the state Supreme Court. And then really, in a remote case, you might get to the federal Supreme Court. But as you can see, there's a lot of hoops to go through. And you can't just say, oh, I'm going to sue that agency, because there's a lot of steps to get through before you can. Another concept I wanted to talk about from the reading was the burden of proof, which I think the text didn't really explain too well. The burden of proof is who has to show that a wrong happened. Remember, everything that's coming to the court, to any court, is because somebody suffered a wrong of some sort, and that wrong needs to be remedied. But, the question of who has to prove that a wrong happened is important. And 99% of the time, the person who has to prove that the wrong happened is the person who is doing the suing, the plaintiff, as opposed to the defendant having to prove that the wrong didn't happen. But occasionally there's cases, as mentioned in the text, with special scrutiny, where it slips to the other side, where it's the defendant who has to prove that something did or did not happen. So the burden of proof is something to keep in mind, and it's something that people tend to think about in criminal cases, but it's an issue in civil cases as well. Well, that is it for this lecture on the concepts discussed in Chapter 2. Be sure to listen to the IRAC lecture. It will give you some details on how to write your IRAC essay this week.